Welcome to Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. Today is Monday the 14th of November, and we're going to try a little experiment today. Yesterday we tried to go into this ridge stand that we've got by sneaking up through the valley, and it was really still. There was no wind blowing. The deer heard us crunching along and they started blowing long before we got even part way into it. 40 yards 40 yards into the half-mile trip and they were already blowing at us. So we're going to take a different approach. We're going to do just the opposite. We're going to take the four-wheeler, we're going to go clear around and go in on the ridge itself. And there's a trail that runs down the top of that ridge, and we're going to just see how close we dare drive the four-wheeler to that stand. We know we're not going to sneak in because it's still again. So we're trying to figure out, does the other extreme work? So it's a little bit of an experiment. Maybe we mess it up and blow the deer away from that spot. It's the last time we're going to hunt it in a while, so it's not like it's the end of the world if we do that, but it'll be interesting to see what we can get away with. I don't know for sure yet where we're going to park. We'll kind of, we'll pull that off, pull that together once we get there, but it's got to be better than what we did yesterday. So it'll be, like I said, a good experiment, and we'll learn a little something today before it's over. I decided to park in this old abandoned overgrown field. It's about 200 yards probably from the tree stand. We're right on the ridge line, and it's tempting to drive right down there. But this has been part of my trail camera loop, and I think the deer are more used to hearing the four-wheeler here. But if I go any further, that's going to be an area where I haven't been driving the four-wheeler at all for several months. So I'm going to stay away from there and just walk in. I think we got in clean. I didn't see any deer running from the four-wheeler when we were coming across, the long way through the ridge. That is here one.
There was a twig broke down here.
And I don't think we bumped anything after we got off the four-wheeler and walked those last couple hundred yards. Must be hearing a squirrel or something down there. But so I feel pretty comfortable saying that was way better than if we'd tried to walk up through the valley under these conditions with such light wind and crunchy leaves. Yesterday we didn't get very far. I don't think today we would have either. But as far as I can tell, with that four-wheeler coming around the long way, we got in clean. Yesterday's hunt brings up a good question about how close to your stand or blind you can drive an ATV or should drive an ATV, and where you should park. The whole question of walking in versus riding in. And it isn't really so much a factor of the effort involved, although there are situations where the ATV can save a lot of work. And keep you from overheating, walking to a stand on a cold day or whatever. But there are situations where driving closer actually improves your chances. First of all, I think you have to match normal human activity. So if people, yourself or others, do travel certain lanes, certain places on the property with ATVs fairly consistently, maybe once or twice a week is often enough, and they don't threaten the deer while they're doing it, they're going to get used to that, and they're not going to see that as danger. So by you making those same routes, taking those same routes, you're not going to get them thinking that something's wrong. You know, they don't like change. They like stuff that is predictable. They know that the farmer goes here and there. He checks his cows. He drives the fence line. I mean, I had a neighbor on the property that we sold. He used to drive the fence line every single day right at sunset, checking the fence to make sure the cows weren't getting out. Well, you know, I'd hunt around that sometimes, and the deer would hear him coming. They might step into the cover and watch him go by. Sometimes they didn't. And he would putt past, and they would come right back to wherever they were a couple of minutes later. So they get used to it. So if you're matching normal human activity, you can get away with a lot. So that's number one. Number two is it has to be a fairly, if you're not matching human activity, it has to be windy, or there has to be something that really covers that sound, because otherwise they're going to react to it. So either it matches human activity or it's windy enough that they can't hear you. And then the third thing is, where do you park? And I think you have to park someplace where they can't see the machine. And again, it has to be on your normal route. So to wrap this up, the question of walking versus riding the ATV, I say the ATV is the better option than walking anytime you can get away with it, because that's something that the deer are more used to. A person walking, that's not normal. A person on an ATV, some places they're used to that, and if they are, then you should take advantage of it. Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails is brought to you by Redneck Blinds, Day 6 Arrows, Code of Silence Apparel, Fuse Accessories, and Hoyt. Today is Tuesday, November 15th, and it's about 2 o'clock, roughly 1:45 maybe. We're heading to the blind that's on this small corn plot, and I think that's going to be where Jordan spends most of her time now for the rest of the season, at least for the foreseeable next few days. It sets up well for her. The shot's predictable. It's not very long. You know, if we try to get into open areas like larger plots and field edges and stuff like that, the shots could be anywhere from 10 to 50 yards. And she's really a 10 to 15 yard, I would say, person right now. And, you know, that's a good spot for that. So even though this is the middle of November, and the middle of November a lot of times means the bucks are tied up with does, I still have high hopes that there's going to be something that comes in there. So Jordan, what do you think about it?
I think it's a good idea.
What does the horse think about it?
The horse agrees too.
Right down to the end. There might be another 10 minutes left, but we've had some action here. We had one doe come in earlier, and then this last little group of 2 does and a fawn. And Jordan tried to get a shot, but it's just a learning curve, I guess, of knowing when you can move. And
I can't stand up from there. Yeah, and I can't stand.
And the first one got away. She was just kind of afraid to move, and the deer might have hurt her too. It's super still. But the second group, they were angling toward the blind. By the time they got broadside, they were out of her window. She's got a quarter towards you now.
Yeah.
She's quartering towards you pretty good. You know, with higher poundage and more experience and so forth, you know, those are dead deer, but it's all part of the learning curve. And, you know, with the draw weight that Jordan's shooting, she needs a really good, clean broadside or quartering away shot.
She doesn't need any quartering toward shots right now.
So we are down on the trail now. We kind of waited it out in the blind for a few minutes because there were still a bunch of deer out, probably 4 or 5, maybe a couple of bucks, few does and fawns left out in the pasture, so we don't want to spook them. But now we're down looking for a trail, and we found some blood right where I shot her, so we're gonna follow that and see where it leads.
No, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
First bow kill.
First bow kill. Now you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's a lot tougher than shooting them with a gun.
Yeah. So we peel off the top part,
Bottom part.
bottom part. That goes on the deer.
Yep.
Yeah, she came out right at the very end of shooting time. And I think she was the only one out in the field, but yep, got a shot. Here she is, first deer with a bow. So hopefully we'll be bringing you a buck soon, but I'm pretty excited.
We spent the day editing and working on projects around here. We're not going to hunt today. I'm going to get this deer cut out, get this jerky started, and then we'll get back to hunting again tomorrow. Okay, so I've got that doe cut up, and I took the back straps out, and this is what's left. This is the boned out meat, probably about maybe 30 pounds, 25, 30 pounds of boned out meat. So you throw the back straps in there, and you probably got about a 40 pounds total of boned out meat, which isn't too bad for a doe. So I've got the pieces that are big enough that I can cut them up for the beef jerky or for the venison jerky, and I'll show you the recipe. I'll post a link to it in the description. I took all the silver skin off the meat, the muscle casing, any tallow, anything that wasn't meat. You just remove it because that's the stuff that generally gives it a more of a gamey taste. So all I'll do now is set those pieces out, and I'll cut them across the grain about a 1/4 inch thick. And then I use the wood pellet grill to cook it and dry it down. And I end up with probably running it at about 300 degrees, maybe a little bit less than that. It takes me quite a while. I'll have a good half a day in processing and turning this much meat into jerky. And the marinade is called, or the recipe is called Chipotle Venison Jerky. And it's the best that I've found. It's really got a nice tang to it. Our family likes it really well. It never sits around for very long. I'd say within 2 weeks, this whole thing will be gone. And we'll give away a little bit of it, but just thought you'd get a kick out of the whole venison jerky process. So you've got quite a few hours into a batch of jerky, but it's definitely worth it. After Jordan killed her doe, we took the next evening off to rest that blind location and to process her deer and turn it into jerky. But the next 3 straight evenings after that, we went back to the same blind. This spot is ideal for Jordan because it produces a very predictable close-range shot that is perfect for a beginning bow hunter. At the risk of overhunting it, we decided that we would stick with this location until Jordan filled her buck tag. The afternoon of the 17th was the first of 3 very cold, windy days. With wind chills in the low teens, we were happy to be inside the blind. The payoff for the evening was 2 fawns and a doe that came to the small corn patch, while 2 small bucks skirted it on the pasture side. The afternoon of the 18th brought more of the same: cold, wind, and limited deer movement. The high winds seemed to make the deer skittish and nervous in the open. We did see a very nice 10-pointer slip around the corn plot to the south. He never stopped to feed and was obviously still cruising and looking for does. Unfortunately, I was not able to uncover a window in time to get him on camera. That buck gave us some hope for the rest of the evening, but he never returned. Just before the end of legal shooting time, we did see a small buck chasing a doe out in the pasture. That was it for the evening's action. November 19th was the coldest day of the fall so far, with wind chill readings in the low single digits. After a very refreshing drive up the bluff to the ridgetop blind location, we set to work moving the blind. The deer were starting to feed more in the standing corn to the south of the blind, so we arrived early, shortly after midday, and drove the four-wheeler right to the blind in the hopes of quickly and easily swinging it to face south. Our mission ended up being anything but easy when it became clear I couldn't get the blind connected to the four-wheeler, and we had to bust it from the icy ground and pull it into place by hand. That accomplished, we settled in for the cold wait, feeling very blessed indeed to be in the redneck blind and not out freezing to the side of a tree. High winds kept the deer movement to 0 until just before the end of legal shooting time, when a doe and 2 fawns came within very close range. In an effort to get out of the blind without spooking them too badly, I elected to throw the lid from one of the buckets we had in the blind at the closest fawn to get it running. That worked perfectly, as the other 2 deer never knew what caused the first one to bolt in panic. With the rut winding down, this coming week should signal the end of the lockdown lull in the rut and the restart of buck movement. We expect great things from this location in the days ahead. How do you know when the pizza's done?
When the smoke alarm goes off.
Exactly. So we made it. We did make it back out. And it wasn't quite as bad as what we really thought. I mean, it was 15 degrees probably, but the wind was cold. So we're back in the cabin, I guess. We need to figure out what we're going to call this place, but we're wrapping up another week, another episode. And you killed your first deer with a bow. Hopefully we can get your first buck here pretty soon. We're going to keep trying.
We saw that one.
Yeah.
Just didn't come around.
That's right.
But.
And I think that it's only going to get better in that spot. Yeah. You know, I know we've hunted it a lot, but we're giving it a break now for a few days. I think they'll move in on it pretty good, and then when we sit there next, it should be really good. So we're going to take a couple of days off, get this video edited, and then we'll be right back again. When Jordan kills, I'll go back to hunting, and you know, we're going to see what we can bring you throughout the rest of the season. So, you know what we always say at the end of these episodes. Thanks for watching Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails, and remember...
always dream big.
That's right.